Hi, good morning all. This is Vijay Raghavan and my qualification is ICWA ACS. I will be here to present the topic of fundamentals of law and ethics. This particular topic is given as a subject for your CMA foundation and equally applicable for CA foundation as well. Let's first discuss about the basics of the law of contracts, which is the first and the foremost topic under business laws topics. Earlier, you need to understand what is law. Law basically is an enforcement agency. You say enforcement agency, what does it mean? Enforcement agency means law basically is not to punish people. There is always a misconception among people that law is primarily punishing people. Not. Law is primarily to make a discipline to the people so that they don't end up repeat doing wrongs. Primarily, the purpose of law is to prevent such occurrence of offences, crimes, etc., whatever be the law enforced, primarily to bring discipline and ensure punctuality among people, obeying to the laws of the country, and to be a good citizens of Indian nation. So, going to the topic fundamentals of law. Earlier, there were laws which were prevalent in the country, like Hindu law, which is purely applicable to Hindus. Second is Muslim law, which were applicable for the Muslims. Christian law, which were applicable for the Christians. Parsi law, which were applicable for the partial set of people. There were laws like this, which were purely termed as personal laws because they are applicable for the respective religion. But there were no law in force which governs commercial transactions or business transactions. If you say there had to be a set of people who want to buy land, who want to buy property, who want to enter into commercial dealing, there was no law in force. This law, Indian Contract Act, was passed by the Parliament on 1st September 1972. You see, 1st September 1870. This law of contract, basically speaking, it governs commercial transactions between there had to be some kind of enforcement agency or a kind of an agreement which makes people to coordinate with each other and have to work together to ensure that the transactions are executed in a properly manner or a timely manner or a correct manner. So, to do so, there had to be an agreement. Before a contract is there has to be an agreement. So, what do you mean by agreement? When you say agreement, what do you mean by agreement? Agreement basically it is actually agreement. When you say agreement, it is defined under section 2 subsection E of the Indian Contract Act. Section 2 subsection E of the Indian Contract Act. This Indian Contract Act, especially what it says that every promise, every set of promises enforceable at law is an agreement. When you say every promise, every set of promises is an agreement, what does it mean? For example, if there are two parties, A and B, A says, I am going to sell my property to you, that is B, for 1 lakh rupees. A is making a promise to B to sell his property. B, on the other hand, B, the other party to the contract, says that I am going to give you 1 lakh rupees for the property that you offer. So, please understand, students, there has to be a two set of promises here exchanged. a two-way promise executing against each other wishes. I wish to sell my property and B is giving me money. B is taking my property and I am receiving from B money. Therefore, both the parties are standing here to gain something out of the transaction. For me money, that is A money, and B, the other hand, is getting A's property. Therefore, there is an exchange of gains between parties. So, consideration basically means something in return. So, for an agreement, there has to be a time, place, parties, price, subject matter, consideration. These are all very, very important elements in a contract, or rather say agreement. Sir, now you are saying what is an agreement and can we distinguish from contract? Yes, obviously students I can distinguish. When you say an agreement and a contract, agreement basically when you say it is defined into two basic categories, agreement and contract. I will just put it the board, the distinction between the agreement and contract. These two terms are often interchangeably used in the business parlance. I say business parlance, business world. So you say agreement is defined under section 2 subsection E, contract is defined under section 2 subsection H. This will be your first distinguishing point between agreement and contract. Second is agreement is basically based on intention of the parties, whereas contract is based on agreement. This is very, very important. The third point of it is all agreements need not be contracts, which means that it need not necessarily be contract, whereas all contracts are agreements. All contracts are agreements. So, let's explain one of them. So, this is as per the Indian Contract Act, the definition is given. Therefore, section 2, subsection E is the agreement, 2 subsection H is the contract. Second is, it is based on intention of the parties. Here, it is based on agreement. Third is, all the agreements need not necessarily be contract, which means that all the agreements, when you enter into it, need not necessarily result in a contract, whereas all the contracts are necessarily agreements. Because I am going to write this fourth point, which is very, very important point. This actually depends upon the fourth point, which is agreement is equal to offer plus acceptance. O plus A. Offer plus acceptance is equal to agreement. Whereas contract is equal to agreement plus enforceability, which is A is for agreement, E is for enforceability. So what does it actually mean, students? Agreement plus enforceability. When you say enforceability, it is to be legally valid in the court of law. When you say legally valid in the court of law, it is evidence acceptable in the court of law. An agreement may be still an agreement, but it has to be signed, it has to be witnessed, it has to be properly stamped and executed. For example, agreement you may see in the real life. You may have got into a rental house. You may have got a rental agreement with the owner. So maybe 100 rupees or 200 rupees or even for a big value property there may be 2000 rupees value. Even Bangalore and Calcutta there are bigger properties where people want to get into rental stuffs. There probably you may execute a rental agreement. The rental agreement has to be executed on the stamp paper. It cannot be executed on the normal paper. Therefore, the agreement has to be stamped, properly stamped. Second is it has to be signed by the parties. I am offering my property. I am the owner of the property. Tenant accepts my property, is coming and willing to come and stay in my property. Therefore, he is a tenant. I am the owner of the property. Both the persons should sign the agreement. Then only the rental agreement is valid. The third part of it is there has to be witnessed. Witnessed means it need not necessarily be a part of every agreement, but in large When you say witness, what does it mean? Witness, W-I-T-T-N-E-S-S. Witness means person who has seen, person who is in presence of the agreement has seen that the agreement or the transaction has been executed, which means that this agreement is valid. Both the owner and the tenant had entered into this agreement. I personally see this transaction. I vouch the transaction. This transaction is perfectly valid. Therefore, witnesses may be one or two depending upon the value, depending upon the type of the transaction, etc. etc. So, legal enforceability, as I said, agreement plus enforceability, where enforceability is generally in terms of signing of the parties, stamping of the agreement, and the witness part of it. Signing, stamping, witness. So these are there, then this agreement takes legal form. That is called enforceability. Agreement taking legal form is equal to enforceability. Therefore, agreement is generally is nothing but only offer plus acceptance. So generally, coming to this topic, law of contracts. So when you come to law of contracts, it generally speaks about different types of transactions in force. It may be general law of contracts, it may be special law of contracts, or law relating to sale of goods, law relating to partnership. So there are different sets of law in force in the country. So law relating to general is up to your study material where to make cover up to the law relating to breach of contract, then payment of damages as a compensation for breach of contract is the topic with which it will close. Sometimes it may be up to quasi contracts, that's all. Specific performance, injunction, etc. will be there up to general contracts. The law relating to special contracts is where indemnity, guarantee transactions. Those are all part of special contracts, pledge, bailment, etc. Special contracts. Law relating to sale of goods, where there is a buyer, there is a seller of the goods. So buyer and seller have to be governed in a proper way so that the sale transaction is properly executed. So the sale transaction to be properly executed, there has to be a law which governs the seller, which governs the buyer. The seller of the goods is under obligation to sell the proper goods, defect-free goods, not to offer deficiency in terms of services. He has to comply with the law relating to force in the country relating to sale of goods. He has to deliver to the buyer the goods, timely delivery, proper delivery, without damage and destruction, right price to be offered to the buyer for the goods. Then comes buyer side, where buyer again has to buy the proper goods. He has to examine the goods. He has to take sufficient care of the goods which he is buying. If he makes a fault, then he cannot hold the seller responsible because seller is selling defective goods. Nothing like that. Buyer is responsible. So these are all the KVA 20 kind of provisions which are applicable in the law relating to sale of goods. Then comes law relating to partnership, where partnership is basically a law which governs the relationship between partners, the person who is the managing partner, the person who is a working partner, the person who is a sleeping partner, person who is a dominant partner. Those are the things which are there, right? So these are all the different laws in the force in the country. So if you see, the basic distinction between these agreement and contracts are clearly enlisted here in the board, which you can probably take it down. So you have ready readouts till now. I take a pause here. Then comes the need for essential elements of a contract. When you say essential elements of a contract, there is always a kind of things which are specifically applicable in order to term an agreement as a contract. What is specifically applicable? When I say specifically applicable, these are the essential ingredients which has to be there in order to Point number 1, offer and acceptance. Offer, what do you mean by offer? When you say offer, it is actually a proposal. I am selling my building or a car or a property or something which is a personal asset belonging to me. I am going to sell, I am going to offer. Right? That proposal is called offer. In modern terms, it is called as proposal. So offer, when I offer something, I am going to offer this willingly. I cannot be compelled to offer. I cannot be threatened by a person through a gunpoint or through a knife or something. Hey, offer me. Nothing. I have to offer freely, with a free intention, willing to offer, happy to offer. Those are the things which are essential part of it. So law recognizes the feelings here. Right? Second part. So when you say the person who is making the offer, I am selling my house, I am selling my property. So the house or the property or the cash, whatever I am offering, right? That is called subject matter of the offer. That is called subject matter of the offer. The person who is offering the offer or making the offer, who is making the proposal to sell my house, property, etc. Person offering is called the offerer. Offerer, O-F-F-E-R-O-R. Offerer. The person who is making the offer is called the offerer. Person to whom the offer is made. For example, I am going to offer to B, who is some second party. The B is called offering, O-F-F-E-R-E-E. O-F-F-E-R-E-E. Offering. So, offerer, offering, subject matter is called the offer subject or proposal subject, which is the car, cash, whatever, pay. So, what are the basic things here? The one important aspect which comes under the law of contract is the consensus ad item. When you say consensus ad item, what does it mean, sir? It's a terminology I am not able to repeat or say. What is that, sir? Consensus ad item. C-O-N-S-E-S. Consensus ad item. When you say it is consensus ad. What do you mean by consensus ad item? It is the intention or same mindedness. Same mindedness. Same mindedness. Hope you all copied this agreement and contract. Make it more visible again. In case if you earlier didn't copy, you can just take a copy. Agreement and contract for the benefit of people, I am again repeating. Section 2E, first point. Section 2H under contract. Second is based on intention. This is based on contract, is based on agreement. The third point is all agreements need not be contracts. Whereas here all contracts are necessarily agreement. Put it is necessarily agreement. Fourth point is agreement is equal to offer plus acceptance, whereas contract is equal to agreement plus enforcement. I would rather say what is meant by consensus added. We say consensus added is same mindedness. What is same mindedness? There was a popular case called Kamal Hans versus Raj Hans. Kamal Hans and Raj Hans, what does it say? There was a person who is having two horses called Kamal Hans and the second horse is called Raj Hans. The A was a seller who was actually trying to sell Kamal Hans instead of Raj Hans to a party called B. Now, B the buyer was thinking that A the seller is going to sell Raj Hans, whereas A is going to sell Kamal Hans. Kamal Hans is a horse name and Raj Hans is a horse. And there are two horses. Okay. Now, B is thinking that A is going to sell Raj Hans, the horse name, whereas A is very clear he is going to sell Kamal Hans. So, here you think A is selling, the example put it before. A is selling Kamal Hans. whereas B thinking he is getting Raj. Okay. Now what happens is B is thinking that he is getting Raj from A, whereas A is clear in selling Kamal. So there is no equal mindedness among the parties. So there obviously there is no contract at all, because there is no like-mindedness or a same-mindedness among the people. What he is selling, the buyer should get only what he is selling. If A is selling one thing, buyer is thinking that he is getting another thing, thinking nothing. We have to be very clear. A and B get the same subject matter of the contract. For example, A is selling Kamal Hans. B is also getting Kamal Hans. Fine, there is an agreement. A is selling Kamal Hans. B is getting Raj Hans. If he is thinking he is going to get Raj Hans. Nothing, no thinking, no going to get a done. He has to be very clear. Both the buyer and the seller have to offer and get the same thing. That is the subject matter of the contract. That is the like-mindedness among the parties. If there is an absence of same-mindedness or like-mindedness among the parties, there can be no contract. The contract will not be executed. It is not possible to execute because there is no like-mindedness between the parties. So this is very, very important element. So when you say first part of it is offer and acceptance, within offer, consensus agreement is another essentially important element, and without which offer cannot even, we cannot think of even giving an offer. Because what we have to offer, we have to be very, very clear. Right? So offer and consensus agreement are very, very close part and parcel of the transaction. Second part of it is acceptance. Acceptance is when I am going to offer my car to B, whereas B is saying, yes, I accept sir, I am ready to buy your car sir for 15,000. So A is selling this car and B is buying A's car. Therefore, A sells and B buys. The B has the intention to buy, that is called acceptance. Yes, I am ready to buy your car. So B is giving acceptance. So in the instant case, let me take A sells his car and B buys A's car. So here what happens? This part of it, A sells the car is offer, right? And B buys A's car means he is accepting. So offer plus acceptance results in agreement. Clear? Clear students? Offer plus acceptance results in agreement. Here you see what are the things I told you? A is the offer, B is the offering, car is the subject matter. So A sells car offer, B buys again car is accepting. Think you have to note students. A is selling the car, B is buying the car. So both of them are very clear in buying and selling car. Consensus agreement is there. Same mindedness is there between A and B. Yes. There is an agreement. Clear? So this is what the basic principle. So offer and acceptance. Whenever you offer one thing, the same thing has to be accepted by the other party, who is called the acceptor or the offering. Offerer and the offering both have to accept and offer the same thing, which is the subject matter of the law of contract. You have to be very, very clear. Right? So offer, acceptance, both are the same subject matter of the contract. So A sells, B buys, both of them are car, therefore it is law of contract which governs consensus agreement. The first part of it is offer and acceptance. Offer, as you see again, every law defines the term. Offer as when one person signifies to another his willingness to do or abstain from doing anything with a view to obtain the consent of the assent of the other party to the act or absence is a purpose. So what the law says, you have to just memorize the definition. It's nothing else. So again, the same. I will any example is the same examples you hold to. So when A signifies to another, means when A signifies or tells to B that he is going to sell his car, and B is giving the acceptance of the car. So the proposal when accepted. So this proposal is A is selling the car. So it is his proposal. A is proposal to sell the car. But B accepts the proposal. Okay. So now when the proposal of A is accepted by B, then it becomes a promise. What does it mean? Now B accepts A's offer of selling. Now B accepts that he is ready to buy the car, and therefore promise comes into existence. What is promise here? B is going to pay the price of the car to A. B is making a promise. Acha bhai, I will pay the amount of 50,000 or 1 lakh. Whatever is the price of the car, that I will pay you. So it is a promise. Again, there is an implied promise on the part of A also to deliver the car accordingly as per the terms and conditions of the contract. Right? Therefore, these are the primary definitions which are part and parcel of it. Again, you can also read through the definitions given in the contract page number 3. Till that is a part of the same. Reciprocal promises. When one person makes a promise to another, the other party makes also a simultaneous promise to the former person. For example, A offers a car B. B is offering bike to A. Therefore, A offers car and B is offering bike to A. Right? So it is a reciprocal promises. Both of them stand to promise each other. It is a reciprocal because I am making one promise, other party is making another promise. Called reciprocal promises. Okay? Then comes void agreement. Agreement which is not enforceable. Again, as I said, what is enforceable? Enforceable means which is not acceptable at law. It is called a void. Void. Void means which is not acceptable, which is not legally tenable, which is not legally recognizable, which is called void agreement. Again, a contract, as I said, is an agreement which is enforceable by law. Voidable contract. What is voidable contract? Sir, there is always confusion, sir. Give me the distinction between void and voidable contract. Yes, ready. I am ready to see this. Please listen. Hope you are able to take a note of it. So, when it comes to void and voidable, what is void and what is voidable? I tell you, void contract and what is voidable contract. This is very common topic which is there and always confusing students when they read. It's very clear. Not at all a contract, not at all valid. It is valid. First point. You need to be very clear. Voidable is valid, but it is here void. We say it is not at all valid. Voidable is valid. Okay. It cannot be enforced. Second point is it cannot be enforced. Cannot be very clear. It cannot be enforced. Whereas it can be enforced at the option of the one of the parties. Please understand, not all the parties, not all the parties, one of the parties, and not at the option of, not at the option of others. Be very clear, guys. It is enforceable, but at the option of only one of the parties, not at the option of other or others, is a void. Please understand. So, void is, it is not at all valid. Or in some cases, Mohini BB versus Narmada Ghosh is a popular case law where contract with or by a minor or a person below 16 years of age, below 18 years of age, as per the law relating to minority, Indian Minority Act or Indian Majority Act, there is a specific law which is that therefore any person who is not even completed 18 years of age is still a minor, and such a person cannot enter into a contract under any contract entered into by or with the minor is void, which is not at all acceptable, which is not legally recognizable. The popular case law which goes is Mohini BB versus Narmada Ghosh, popular case law. Voidable contract, it is still valid. It is, here when you compare to void, you cannot say it is not valid. Here it is valid. But second point actually completes the main purpose of the distinction. Second point is void contract cannot be enforced, whereas voidable contract can be enforced at the option of one of the parties but not at the option of other parties. The best example is void Here, third point you can also put as an example for some of the distinction points, just to for many people to write down distinction points. You can also put as an example as third point. Contract with a minor. Contract with a minor is void, whereas voidable contracts is coercion, undue influence, mistake, etc. These are the cases where your contract, whenever it is entered into under coercion, coercion means threat, force, violence, physical threat. For example, if I fail to enter into a contract, there will be a third party who will come and say, enter into a contract. Otherwise, I will take a gun, part of party, I will shoot you if you don't enter into a contract. So you have been forced, you have been coerced, you have been put under a threat and you are forced to enter into a contract. This is called coercion. Section 15 of the Indian Contract Act. Undue influence means there is a kind of a moral influence on you. You are being pacified. Your mind has been entered into by another person and is trying to convince you or is trying to do some kind of influence on you to get the control of you. And then he is trying to influence your mind, getting into your mind, influence your mind, and then he is kind of pacifying you to enter into an agreement. There is no distinction. There is a very clear